Namaste. Welcome back to the webinar series Mindfulness on the Go. This is session 4, and I'm Vinay Daholkar, host of this series. And we are exploring together this book, which is called Mindfulness Connecting with the Real You. And we are at chapter 4. Today, please join me in welcoming Vipul Mathur, my friend. Hi, Vipul.
Hi, good evening. Good evening,
Yeah.
Vinay. Good evening, everybody.
So I'm going to introduce Vipul. Vipul and I, we've been knowing each other for over a decade now. We used to live close to each other until very recently. And we used to have, there was a lake nearby and we used to go for long walks, and topic would be invariably what we are discussing today. Vipul has been in the fashion industry for 2 decades. Currently he's business head in a e-commerce company, Udaan. Prior to this, he was CEO of Mufti Jeans, Aditya Birla Fashion. He mentors startups, and he's a trainer and ontological coach. And he's also interested in spirituality and yoga. Interestingly, he's associated with an industry, a fashion industry, where image counts a lot. And we'll hear from Vipul. How does he, understand and experiment with mindfulness and related areas where image gets explored. Yeah. But before we get into conversation with Vipul, I want to take a few minutes to explore a couple of points or explain a couple of points that I want to communicate. And I'm going to share my screen so that I can show a few slides. Okay, let me just. Yeah. So I hope that everybody is able to see the screen. And this is a definition we have been seeing, exploring, questioning for the past few sessions. I'm not going to spend too much time, just for us to reiterate, this is what we are exploring, which is mindfulness is a process of learning to see clearly despite fast, automatic, and biased thinking, and anytime, anywhere. Okay. Now, there's one particular aspect that I feel I want to introduce, which was actually there in chapter 1 itself. And that's the notion of progress. I'm going to go back to this biased cycle, or the reverse handle cycle, which was introduced in chapter 1. And you can see on the left-hand side this image where when the handle turns left, this wheel turns right. And we explored, actually the chapter explores a couple of people who learned this cycle. It was not easy. So the person on the right-hand side, that image is, his name is Mike Boyd. And he runs a YouTube channel in which he learns lots and lots of stuff in perhaps 1 day or 2 days, like playing violin or juggling and all that. One of the things he also took up as a challenge was learning to ride this cycle. And after spending 4 days and total duration of 1 hour, meaning spending maybe half an hour or less on each day, in this picture, what Mike is saying is there is definitely some progress. And why is he saying that? He's saying that because at this point, he is able to go quite far with this cycle. He was struggling to just, go few feet earlier. And slowly as he practiced, because, you have to turn the handle left when actually you have to go right. So it's quite reverse. And he felt he's now actually progressing. Yeah. The question we are asking is that in this journey of learning, which is mindfulness, can we also say the same thing as Mike, that, oh, there's definitely some progress here. Okay, what would it mean to say such a thing as, oh, there's definitely some progress? And I'm going to put forward a hypothesis or a proposal or a suggestion that notion of progress may be meaningless in mindfulness, which is this journey of learning. And why would I say that? When we go back to this cycle, there is only one gear which is exposing one bias, which is your tendency to turn the handle left when you want to turn left. Now, life situations, when they can change in so many different ways. And there are so many tendencies I might have which suddenly get exposed. Can I anytime be so sure that under no circumstances, whether COVID comes or something else comes, oh, I can ride the bicycle of life? And I'm raising a question mark. I'm saying I may have so many biases, so many tendencies inherent, which I'm not even aware of, which new situations may throw me off balance. And I may have to again readjust, like just this COVID situation, which was completely new. So I'm just suggesting here that notion of progress may be meaningless in mindfulness. Having said that, I also want to point out that I'm wearing two hats here, or playing two roles here. One, as the author of this book, who is trying to clarify the meaning in the book. And the second role is a facilitator of this platform, of this webinar, where we have co-hosts like Vipul and Kavita, and all of you as guests. And you may have opinions and beliefs and understanding which may be quite different from mine. And when I wear that hat, I'm going to listen and welcome all views. And my request to you all is not to get into I'm right and you're wrong kind of debate, but listen and maybe see, well, there may be situations where some other view is more relevant. Yeah, and which one may be more useful to me, kind of questions, and maybe stay with that. So that's my request to you. The second aspect that I want to bring about is the metaphor we have used, which is train of thought. We introduced this in the last chapter, and we asked the question, okay, can I hop off this train of thought at least once in a while? Maybe it's useful several times, but once in a while, can I experiment? Let's see, can I hop off and watch my breath or hear some sounds and so on? We are extending this metaphor in this chapter, chapter 4, and also next chapter, which is chapter 5. And in this chapter, we are asking a question. This moment, is this the right train? There's some train of thought going on. Am I in the right train? And can I recognize if I'm not in the right train? Yeah. So that's what I and Vipul will discuss, and perhaps you will join and you will also explore this together. And the next chapter is when we will ask a question, what is fueling this train? Which means, why is this coming back again and again? There must be something which is fueling this train. Yeah, so that's the way we'll use this metaphor. So now let's jump into this chapter, which is called Recognizing Wasteful Thoughts. Yeah. So Vipul, one question is, what's a wasteful thought, and what does recognizing wasteful thought mean to you?
Vinay, the benefit is that I I have my own thoughts, and my benefit is that I have the book also. So I have read the book. I have gone the chapter a couple of times, knowing that I would have a chance to speak to you. So I'll start that thread from the book, and then probably add my thoughts to it. I think the beauty with which you explain this in the book in chapter 4 is that um, there are thoughts and there are useless thoughts. And the wasteful thoughts are the ones which are not serving us any purpose at this point of time. Um, and these are typically the thoughts when we started to imagine a worst case scenario as what if this happens and what if that would happen, and it will do this to me, it will do this to that, and it starts to appear real, and it takes a grip on us, it captures us. It creates sense of worry, it creates sense of anger and a fear, and we start to live in that as an emotion. And I think chapter further elaborates that if this happens over a period of time in a repetitive manner, in a manner which is not in our control, and it is automatic, it starts to become a behavior. It starts to become a way of life and the way we think. And it could have a huge damaging impact on who we are and what we are capable of and what we can achieve in our life. Um, and I think India and the thought that what if I fail and what will it do to my self-image um, is probably also correlated. I mean, as a society, as a middle class upbringing, need to build up a self-image. Uh, and the fear of failure further accentuates this as a thought. And hence, I think I could also see in the book a very strong correlation between that these thoughts um, are actually linked to the potential loss of the self-image. What if I do this and I'll come across as somebody who is stupid, and I don't want to look as stupid. And I sometimes wonder, Vinay, that for all of us who want to go ahead in the journey of mindfulness, could there be a switch? Could there be a way that I would just get off this train and just watch this as a useless thought? Uh, is there a way to disengage? And there are a few aspects which in the chapter you have highlighted. So I'll request you to elaborate that a little bit, because to me they potentially provide the areas of working which can meaningfully change our lives. So is there a switch, and how can we operate that?
Okay. Now, maybe perhaps let's start with a few elements which come close to a switch, and maybe you can also add here. So I feel, for example, there are people around us, we see, our family members sometimes, and relatives and friends who are not able to sleep because there's too much of thinking going on, and there's too much of worrying sometimes. And one kind of a switch that they cater to is a pill, something like antidepressant, for example, or sleeping pill, which I think may be slowing down the thought process. Somewhere it may be having some effect on the nervous system. Another switch which people sometimes use is, let's say, watch a movie, some kind of entertainment. You engage yourself in some form of entertainment, watching a video, watching a movie, and if not these, perhaps dreaming about positive thinking. Okay, everything will go away after a few months, COVID will be gone, vaccine will be there. Positive thoughts, and that feels good actually. Now I feel all of these may have some role. They play a role. I don't want to just wish away all these things, right? All these have their place. The sleeping pill has a place, maybe antidepressant has a place, but looks like, first of all, they are more like a soothing or balm kind of effect. They have temporary effect, they also might have some side effects. And again, the pattern comes back. Same thing for a movie and something. So that's one aspect. Now we are asking a question which is slightly different. We are saying, actually we are using an analogy, and maybe people, I'll just use that Prasenjit as example to point out what this is that, so this is a story which, who knows whether it's true or not, but it's attributed to Buddha, who was visiting a prince called Prasenjit. And Buddha was giving a discourse and Prasenjit was wiggling his big toe. And Buddha asked him, Prasenjit, why are you moving your big toe? And moment that question is asked, the big toe stops wiggling. And Buddha asked him, what happened? Why did it stop and why was it moving? Why was it moving? Now, our man is puzzled. He says, I didn't even know that it was moving. But moment you ask the question, the movement stopped. And hypothesis here, or a suggestion here, or proposal is that when you observe a bodily movement to be wasteful, once you pay attention to that, it stops. And you can check it for yourself. We many times have a habit of shaking our leg, or take a pen and do something like this, right? We keep, sometimes it's wasteful. But if you pay attention to that movement, it stops. And we are extending this hypothesis to thought as well. We are saying thought is also a kind of material movement, far subtler than your leg shaking. And if you can watch and recognize it to be wasteful, it will stop. So would that be, so this recognition kind of acts like a switch in some sense, or at least you could say it is like taking your pedal off the accelerator, where something which is moving now doesn't get energy anymore and stops. So this is, I would say, can we call it switch, is a debatable point. But we are saying, if we can hop off the train of thought, which is what we looked at last time, can I watch this train of thought and say, okay, is this serving a useful purpose right now? And if I can really recognize that, look, this is a repetitive thing coming back again and again, a worry kind of thing, which right now is not serving a useful purpose, that recognition itself can stop. So this is, again, for some people, this may be just theory. So let's ask Vipul, what has been your experience in recognizing wasteful thoughts? When did you find it easy, and when do you find it difficult?
So you said two parts, the pill part, and I'll come to this. And there is an interesting joke around it. So there is a Mahatma Ji who said that there are actually three things which you can do around. So either it is pill, or it is pillow, or it is pillow. So you can sleep, or you can have a drink, or you can have a pill. So coming back to what has been my experiences. So two experiences, Vinay. One is that I had a chance to be part of a student of a technique of meditation called Vipassana, and we talked about it. And in that, as a technique and as a Buddhist technique, they talk about watching the breath, and that's been very useful for me, because in my view, breath is much, let's say, physical than thoughts by themselves. I fail most of the times, but sometimes I succeed to look at the breath. And the moment I look at the breath, I know that I'm not looking at the thought. And certainly the power of the thought becomes very feeble. And it gets easier for me to also sometimes look at the body as I look at the thought. Again, one of the extensions of Vipassana teaching. And the moment I disengage myself from the thought, I can actually watch it. So I'm not into the train, and probably that's, as we look at the narrative, my thought and body sometimes provides me a way and a medium to come off and stand on the platform. So that has been one experience. Another experience is that um, I have sometimes attempted to put a certain structure to it, where I would say that at certain frequency, I would journal. So when I journal, I get up early in the morning and start to write and just pour the mind out. Uh, in the process of journaling, as I'm writing, there is some amount of unpeeling happening. And I said, my God, I mean, I was worried about it, but and it's not as potent as it looks like. It looks like undue. It looks like that I exaggerated it. It looks like that this fear or this apprehension was not correct. And the moment I, like in the theory, when you hit the bottom, and when there comes at a place where you have kind of poured out all thoughts out on the paper, uh, at least to me, it provides a certain sense of emptiness, and from that emptiness arises the sense of possibility or a new sense of thoughts which are uh, which open, where I'm open, where I'm looking forward, where I'm not afraid, where I'm not anxious. So that's more structure to it. Another structure which is, and so let's say this can be done a couple of times in a week. Another structure which I follow being a coach, and I first received the coaching, and then after that I started to deliver the coaching. The third thing is I speak out things to my coaches, and the beauty about coaches is that they listen, and they are able to show a mirror to me that this is how it looks like. I mean, is and that mirror sometimes is very useful because they are able to show me what I don't know that I don't know, uh, and hence it creates an immediate opening. Oh, this is I was operating on this specific value or belief, and they showed it to me. So I'm saying three things. I'm saying more often than not, it's the consciousness of body and the breath which helps. Sometimes it's my own journaling, asking certain questions, and the beauty is that Google has all the possible questions one can ask to himself. And third is getting help. Yeah, and fourth, I mean, I must mention going with a friend on a morning walk by the lake, like you, and talking and saying कि यार मुझे ऐसा लगता है, तुमको क्या लगता है, and then over a conversation, a friendly conversation, it comes out. So that's how I have had a chance to do it. I also strongly believe, and you raised it up, that the whole angle of self-image, Vinay, more and more when we go deeper into any either the psychological dimension of it, I love psychology, and hence when we go in that dimension, or we go the dimension of spirituality, which is what Eckhart Tolle says, there seems to be a strong correlation between worry and self-image. And hence my question to you is that if we have to solve for worry, should we watch for thoughts, or should we watch for the self-image which we have created and which is probably throwing up the worries at us? What's your view?
So, frankly, it's a very good question. Self-image forms, I would say, a very, very core part of this exploration. My experience is that watching thoughts is an easier experimentation than watching self-image or damage to self-image, for example, or how am I really trying to protect and enhance my self-image. But that's my experience, and both are important, and I think subsequent chapters actually go deeper and deeper into the self-image part. But I would say it's my experience, but I guess one has to really experiment and see. So thought, when you watch, sometimes our emotions can be so strong. I mean, this is one of the feedback that I get in my workshops as well, that people said, boss, I just can't watch thoughts because they are zooming past. They are so fast. So I'm really not able to watch. And so for those who have never tried to watch, this can appear overwhelming as an experiment. And hence it might be easier to do it when things are relatively peaceful, not, there's no big worry or there's no big fight going on, and you're not upset about anything. That's easier because thoughts are a little lighter. Than there is perhaps what we earlier in last session described as a space there, which you can access, from which you can observe thoughts. But even when you want to really check whether this is serving any useful purpose, maybe there's some kind of irritation going on, it may still be easier to start with small irritants. I mean, and what is small irritant could be different for you and me. For example, a relationship where I get upset with somebody at home, which is very close to me, spouse or kid or, parents, then it may be very difficult because the emotion involved could be really, really strong. While maybe if I get upset when somebody cuts me on the street, I may get irritated, but it's still third person, and he's not, I can't even see him properly, the car goes by. So it may be a little easier to watch the usefulness of such irritation, which is not as strong emotionally as, let's say, boss at office or family members at home, and the emotion involved, especially negative emotion involved there. But that's my experience, Vipul. And who knows, maybe for some people, just watching this self-image game could by itself be first easier and more enjoyable. Who knows?
Great. So, Vinay, I'll probably also, indicate here to the participants of the webinar is that we will open up for questions. I mean, we'll open up for questions to Vinay in a couple of minutes, and in case something comes to your mind around worry, self-image, wasteful thoughts, your experiences, something which you would want to share with this group, something which you want to indicate to this group, something which you want to explore with Vinay, you may start to type it on the chat box. And if there are a few of them, then I think you can individually chat up. If there's something which you specifically, if there are too many, then I'll try and moderate and put them into a structure so that it is meaningful. So just wanted to indicate that. Coming back, Vinay, I, as an individual, always have benefited from tools. And one of the tools around self-image, and one of my, teachers in the book wrote and asked me this question. I was pursuing very hard onto something. And the question which she asked me was very simple, and it was, for what? For what? And I said, I want to get there and do this. And she said, for what? And just because this is how I want to, which is for what? And after 2 or 3 or couple of forwards, I said, what the hell? It looks like I've got over obsessed with either power or fame or money and been running after it. And I have found, for what? An interesting question to ask myself and to my friends, my coaches, my family. To ask ki zarurat kya hai?
Yeah.
Kya aafat aa gayi hai? Types. But I think for what is a good handle.
Yep.
I also think, Vinay, that as I was saying about tools, in past about 30, 40, 50 years, there is a lot of work which has happened in the space of psychology, which is how to deal with thoughts. And the 2 schools of thoughts which emerged. One school of thought was a school of thoughts around positive psychology and positive affirmation. So Louis Hay as one, or The Flow as a book as another thought. It says if you start to keep on thinking about the positivity and also around what is possible, what's working for you, over a period of time, the negative thoughts starts to get it with the positive thoughts, and the negative thoughts starts to lose the power. The second, just a second. And the second part, um, which is the school of NLP, they said that there is a way that you can actually corrupt the thoughts. And it's an interesting way. So what they do is that you can go inside your mind, relive the event which is bothering you, and then create distortion in that event. I mean, place funny characters, reverse the order, break them, juggle it up. And in our memory tape, the tape starts to get destroyed and the money get. So I think uh, in this, from a psychological aspect, so there is one aspect which is around awareness. So create awareness, and I would say create awareness which is of instant or with a structure. But in case that's not working for somebody, then there is another element which is around creating, either distorting the thoughts or creating another form of a thought. And I think there is another element which got developed recently is the ontology. And ontology says that you can actually use your body to alter the thoughts. Now, to give you an example, if I'm angry, then the chances are that I'm leaning forward in the movement, heated up, eyes strained, shoulders moving forward, and maybe I'm ready to kind of punch, and my body language is a certain type. Um, and hence, if I want to replace that, and I can lean back on my chair and sit like this and get my shoulders a little relaxed and droop down, eyes goes up, and then I started to converse, and in this body posture I cannot be into zone of action, and I cannot hence be in the zone of anger, and hence use body to actually break the pattern of thoughts. So I'm saying that there are two worlds which are emerging in my view. One world is about awareness, and another world is of tools which one can deploy uh, to solve for this.
Okay.
And
Thanks for sharing.
thanks. So Vinay, should we open it for the questions? And I think there is a question from Mukesh which I can you read, or should I read it? Or I'll read out so that everybody can listen.
No, I can read. Vipul, before I thought there's one angle aspect of it which about this diet thing. I'll just take a couple of minutes, and then is that okay? I'll open up, because that's an element I thought I wanted to share.
Pertinent, very pertinent.
Yeah. So for that purpose, I will also share a couple of slides. This comes from the book, this movie, Beautiful Mind, and I just want to share this aspect, and then it's a matter of a couple of minutes, and we'll open up. Yeah? So this is a metaphor we borrow called diet of the mind. Is mindfulness like dieting of the mind? And I'm going to take a couple of snapshots from this movie, which is called A Beautiful Mind. And it's loosely based on Nobel laureate John Nash. And this particular picture depicts a scene where a Nobel committee member has come to visit Nash in the Princeton University campus, and they are having tea there in the cafeteria. And Nash is articulating how he's a schizophrenic by then, been there for a few decades and still managing quite well. And he's telling what he's doing. Is he sort of awakening like a light bulb? What's his process? And he say, but I still see things that are not there. I just choose not to acknowledge them, like not to indulge in certain appetites, like diet of the mind. So that's where he uses the terminology, which is also borrowed from the real John Nash in the biography. Now, there are a couple of areas where it gets articulated what dieting could mean. And this is where when the first time this gentleman from Nobel committee comes to check whether this guy is actually crazy, he's actually in the class. And when the class finishes, there are students come out, and John also comes out. And this gentleman has come to meet him. He's never met him. So Nash stops a student going out and checks with her. Can you see him? And she confirms, yes. And then he says, forgive me, I'm just always suspicious of new people. So this is an articulation of how awareness of slippery area, that Nash is aware of his slippery area, which is he imagines new people. people who are not there. And all of us have our own slippery areas where sometimes when you take on your additional spoon of sugar, and when you go to buffet and take more on the plate, and sometimes when certain people are talking to you and say something, you engage in certain fights. So we all are familiar with situations which potentially can trigger negative thoughts. And this is an interesting situation where you can become more alert there. And the next aspect is um, Nash realizes that this gentleman has come from the committee to actually find out if he is crazy. So he says, "You see, you came here to find out if I was crazy?" And that guy says, "Kind of, yes." And Nash responds, "Yes, it's possible." And I felt that was an extremely powerful response. Imagine somebody comes to check whether you are a crazy guy or says you're stupid. Are you stupid? Are you so stupid? And you answering or I answering, "Oh, it's possible, by the way. But can we understand a little more as to what you mean?" So this is what I call listening with "it's possible" attitude. And it's a thing which will run through this webinar again and again. So I just thought I wanted to just bring out these things which may be useful. Yeah. Okay. So now I think Vipul, let's open up. And some of them could be, you could help me and we could do that. So where do we start? We start with what Mukesh has raised, Mukeshji. So worries has power to get one to respect the complexity, uncertainty, toughness, and roughness of the challenge one is working on, and hence getting the best. I wonder, are worries always negative? Let me start something, and Vipul, you can add here. So as Vipul said, worry is one kind of what if simulation, right? We are saying, okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? And of course, that what if simulation, I think, does play a role, which means because I'm able to imagine some what if scenarios, I can plan certain things. Oh, if this really goes down, if let's say I'm a freelancer, and this is a situation where everybody's, not giving work to people. So I may not get assignments tomorrow. I can imagine that scenario. And if I do that, maybe I'll plan up something. Maybe I'll not spend as much or whatever, or maybe I'll think of something else. So to some degree, it definitely plays a role. The question we are asking is sometimes it can become repetitive. I don't take any action and it just keeps coming back again and again. Compulsive and repetitive patterns. And that's where it may be not useful. Yeah, so I would say a simple way to check. Of course, you can never be sure. You need to check at that moment if it serves a useful purpose. A what if scenario, which is not useful right now, could be useful tomorrow or a few moments from now or whatever. I guess we are really asking the question right now. Is it serving a useful purpose? Yeah, that's my take.
Can I add to it?
Please add it.
Um,
Please.
Another element possible. So I asked similar question to myself. That's the first thing as I was reading this chapter, that are always worries useless. But in this specific case, if worry is giving me sense of pride, um, there is a risk which one runs, that that worry is instituted in order to gain pride, which is satisfying, and that possibly is the game of the self-image, where through knowing that there was a difficult situation, which created worry, which created opportunity for me to deliver, and I created miraculous results, and hence I am good. Uh, could this potentially be uh, a, a decoration of self-image cyclism? Is we should watch off. But I think it's good to stay with this question that is very useful.
Sure. Yeah, it could be. I mean, Vipul, it could always be a decoration, and one should always be watchful of that question. I completely agree. So is it okay, Vipul? Let's look at the
Yeah.
second question, which is
Whenever
Jay's question.
there are four questions, three questions post this, and we have about 20 minutes. So I think we can let participants ask. It'll become more engaging for all of us. So Jay,
all right, sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, Jay, do you want to post the question?
Is that Meenal or? Yeah.
Yeah, it's me. I have it's signed up under my son's name, so it's Meenal. Yes.
Okay, hi.
Meenal, where's your camera? Oh, it's okay. So Meenal, do you want to actually articulate, or this is you want me to read out this question?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
So basically, the question I posted is like, usually, I'm usually well prepared for any kind of exams, or if any kind of presentations I have to do, but always those wasteful thoughts, like, what if, what if I fail? What if I cannot? What if I'm not able to present it the way I want? So those kind of wasteful thoughts always, like, occur right before the exams, and that's when, like, I get like really anxious and nervous. So it's kind of like a stage fright response. So what are your thoughts about, like, at that moment, like how to conquer those thoughts?
Now, for those who don't know, Meenal is a doctor, and quite a established doctor, and she has passed several exams which many people struggle to pass. But you see, and that would be the case. We have experienced. You might have passed so many exams, but it would still feel, exam could still feel create anxiety in all of us. And Meenal, I would say it would eventually, some of these anxieties could be fairly deep rooted. I mean, and we have inherited. I mean, it's not as though I have generated it. It's a society which is, we inherit all these things where everybody asks these questions. Okay, one who fails is not a good guy, right? Or it's not a good thing to happen. So eventually it will get down to what Vipul has been saying as the root cause, which is I'm trying to really protect my image as somebody who doesn't fail, and as an image of somebody who is always gets certain type of marks, or certain conforms to certain things which society considers good, right? I'm trying to be a good boy or a good girl, a good wife or a good husband. They are not bad necessarily, right? They are there probably for certain reason, but they somehow take over everything that drives my thoughts. And somewhere it needs to be seen for what it is. It's a facade of expectations created by everybody around me, and then I take it too seriously. And in some sense, once I begin to see its nature as to how it's really been created and how it's driving my life, my experience is that the seriousness with which I look at it slowly diminishes. Okay. And another thing, another exercise, I don't know whether that helps. I mean, at least this is not so much, I have not discussed so much in mindfulness, but it happens in my design thinking and innovation workshops, which has this principle of fail fast, where I build prototypes where I know that I start anticipating failures, where, I have no clue. There's a lot of uncertainty. Let me try. When I'm trying, by definition, I don't know the outcome and I might fail. So can I fail fast, but also inexpensively, which means the cost of failure is low, right? Can I keep failing, and then I see something? So, and in that sense, I'm sure when you prepare for exams, you keep doing these practice sessions where, and stage fright could be something similar. I remember Kabir practicing his guitar, and sometimes, his practice is mostly alone in the room, closed door. but before performance, when he actually sat and practiced in front of us, it was different. Initially, if you have not done it, just facing somebody creates some anxiety. And I think that's also practice. So you just sit in front of people, even though they are your family member, you practice because that helps performance, right? I guess in that sense. But I think over a period, it would get down to this root thing as to what am I trying to really protect, right? And hopefully that then changes things.
Yeah.
That insight.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Abhijit
Yeah.
also has an interesting question.
Abhijit always
Abhijit, do you
brings
wanna-
fantastic questions. Yeah, Abhijit, what's the question?
Hi, nice to see all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the wonderful discussion. My question was that we're discussing here that observing thoughts disempowers them in the sense that it loosens their hold on us. My question was about how about observing the observer?
Yeah.
Does that also have the same effect? Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, Abhijit, we have not yet, we want to get there. What is this observer which is trying to observe? I mean, he's raising, you could say, is a very, very fundamental question as to we are trying to observe the thoughts and who are these thoughts attributed to? And of course, I'm saying that, I mean, if these are my thoughts, then they are attributed to some entity called Vinay who is observing these thoughts. And what Abhijit is asking is, how do what about observing the observer itself? And I would say that would be an important kind of observation we want to get to. I mean, assuming there is something called an observer which is independent, we don't know. So one of the assumptions, and I think that's where, let's say when Vipul uses the term called tool, mindfulness is a tool or some other tools that he described. A tool is a usage that is common to us because I get hammer in my hand and I use it, right? So I'm using hammer, right? It's my tool. So usually when I use hammer, the hammer and me are relatively independent things. So I can move the chair. Since I can move the chair, so my thought which decides to move the chair and the chair are at least relatively independent, because I could wish that I will move and I am able to move and I can observe it. Now, is this entity called Vinay or the observer and the thoughts, do they also have the similar independence? I don't know. Okay. And at the moment, we are not assuming anything. And it's better to not assume something. We could also assume, and we can tentatively assume and maybe explore and see whether it is correct or not. There is one hypothesis which is, yes, I can change myself, I can improve myself for the better self-improvement, I will change my beliefs for better, and so on, and those beliefs. And of course, there is this other side which is, oh, there is no difference really. I am my beliefs. I'm a collection of my beliefs. So I think that's the kind of exploration we want to get to. And Abhijit, my guess is Abhijit has been doing this kind of things for a while, right? So maybe Abhijit, you can tell us a little bit about your experiments, but that's something we will come to little later in the subsequent chapters. And hence, this is where you at least try to watch the thoughts is what the suggestion was. But Abhijit, you want to share something?
Yeah. That's fine. Thank you. I didn't mean to bring some the content of the other chapters here. The basic premise is that you have your field of awareness or attention. And there is the object, and there is the observed, the observer, and the process of observation. And it depends on where you put your attention.
Yeah.
And these are actually, you can think of and this goes into different schools of meditative practices as to where you put your attention in these three things. But that is what I was going to. But I'll wait for the subsequent chapters and the discussion there. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess just one aspect which we have sort of alluded to even earlier, which is between object and process. We are at least trying to see the process. For example, we said a water fountain. You know, water fountain could be an object when a child draws, or if you draw a water fountain on the paper, you will draw it as an object which has a certain shape. But when you try to touch water fountain, it's really not an object in the sense. Every moment it is different. And the question we asked is, so you could say water fountain is a process really, where every moment it is different, but the shape looks somewhat similar. And we said, look, when I watch a flower, the flower is also kind of a water fountain, because actually every moment the flower, there are some things changing within the flower, right? Or a leaf for that matter. There is water flowing from the root, and if the speed may be very slow, but nevertheless, there's a photosynthesis going on and all that, right? So it's a process. And one of the shift we are trying to do is to watch the process and not the object itself, right? But I mean, that's something which is, maybe people may not be used to really. But I would say watching the thought process is bringing attention to the process part of it, not necessarily the objects per se. Yeah.
Vivek has a question. Vivek,
Yeah.
do you want to speak out?
Yeah. Am I audible? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, Vivek, yes. Good
Yeah.
to
Hello,
see you.
sir. Hi. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you, sir.
Yeah.
So my question was like, what are the indicators that we are, I mean, I'm unconsciously fueling this repetitive thought pattern. So it is sort of very natural and normal to be a part of this thought pattern. So am I really, in the process of ending it, or trying to reach somewhere? Am I sort of unconsciously fueling it again and again? So what are the indicators that I'm fueling this process or pattern? My question.
Vivek, one of the key assumptions we are making, if you look at the definition we began with, is that this is a process of learning despite fast, automatic, and biased thinking. Okay, and this fast mode, automatic is automatic, which in a way is unconscious, largely unconscious, which means I have no clue how it's happening. Which means you can say it's like a tip of the iceberg. I'm able to see some things, but this large part of the iceberg is under the water, really. Okay, so I mean that's the assumption. Could it be, in some cases maybe you could see a lot of how it's getting fueled, but for most of us, large part of that fueling, and that fuel is what we want to really go to the next. That's what we want to go to next chapter, right? What is fueling, right? We are first at least learning to watch the surface at least, and
Okay.
ask whether, okay, at the moment, is it serving a useful purpose? And the assumption is that if you really get convinced that it's not serving, it would actually might drop off. I mean, that's something you want to try and check. But like Vipul also has been saying from the quite beginning, that finally we want to get down to what is really fueling. Yeah, and that's an important aspect as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
So
Vipul, yes, maybe
these were the questions which are available with us. If any of you have any other questions, we can take it up.
Yeah, Sagar has asked a question, right? Sagar?
Yeah, yes. Sagar, you want to speak?
You want to talk about it? Yeah.
I was just making a comment I was saying that I guess this is just a natural tendency of the mind to either live in the past, to ruminate about the past, or to fret about the future, have anxiety. And so this, what you're going back to your point, that this is happening automatically. This is an inherent cycle going within the mind, and only by observing your own mind, you can actually break the cycle or even become aware of the cycle. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying. And in fact, you could also observe, like we observed of the shaking of the leg, that if you actually see that this at the moment no purpose, the shaking of the leg, the shaking stops. And that we can easily observe. And my suggestion is we can extend this particular observation, that is recognition of it being not useful, actually stops it. And this is, I would say, just the theory part. You need to only experiment and watch it. Only then can it be really meaningful to you. So that's the suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think another speaker was one of the audience member was asking, and I think that's for the future discussion is then who is the observing that this phenomenon. So
that's right. We definitely want to explore that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So thanks. I think wonderful questions, and they facilitated some, very deep conversation. And I was quite enamored by the level of thinking and the conversation which went to where we went from thoughts to observation and from observation to observing the observer. Interesting staged conversation. Vinay, before we, kind of sum up today's thing, you started with saying about the progress, and you solicited views. You presented yours, and you said that is there a progress? And I have a view. Can I suggest that? Yeah. So
you have a view, right? You please, Vipul, you should. Yeah.
So I think in my own personal capacity, I've seen that as one become more mindful, then the tendency and the capability to watch the thought at relatively higher frequency improves, which means that if I was able to watch the useless thoughts, 3 times a day, and if I am not able to watch it 20 times a day, I personally believe that I've made some progress. At some point of time, if I get to 1 hour a day, that I'm constantly being able to watch and become an observer, I'll say that that's even more a progress. And I'm not there. But at some point of time, if I can get to a 24 hours a day, then that will be in some sense a complete progress. So I think one of the ways to measure progress is that how frequently have I been able to watch the pattern of thoughts and jump off the train? That could be one measure.
Okay.
And another measure which I heard Shri Goenkaji speaking about in the Vipassana class, and it has stayed with me as a thought, is that, and he says that अगर आपके जीवन में ध्यान उतरता है तो आपके जीवन में प्रेम भी उतरेगा. And he says that compassion could be another yardstick to say that have you started to get more mindful, because in a state of mindfulness, chances are that we will feel happy, and in a state of happiness, compassion is possibly an automatic outpour of emotion, and hence maybe compassion is another, and a degree of compassion one operates from in the whole day would be another measure of a mindfulness. So maybe there are measures, at least.
Maybe, yeah. So, and I think that's something people need to experiment and check for themselves. Eventually, what we will have to do though is to also explore the need to have progress. I mean, that's quite more fundamental. Why does even I need to always seek progress? And that's a very fundamental need that all of us have, because unless I'm progressing, why should I do it? Types. So I'm saying there's a need to even maybe, and if this need to be progressing, if that's also at the root of this, then even while doing mindfulness, if I'm checking progress, I may be in the same cycle, trapped. So every assumption is to be questioned here, and that includes the assumption that I need to have progress is also an assumption. So it feels good, by the way. I mean, I'm progressing. Vipul, I check 100 times a day now. So it feels good. Is it the same level of goodness of watching a movie that gives me a feeling temporarily and it feels a little better, right? So it may serve a purpose, and it could also leave one in the same trap if that becomes an important tool. So, but anyway, Vipul, I think these are wonderful things. So thanks for joining me, and let's continue this discussion next time. So let's close here. We just looked at one simple aspect of watching the thoughts and asking the question, is it serving any useful purpose? And that's a simple experiment for you to try. Start perhaps with really simple irritants, or maybe even no irritant state where things are really peaceful, and maybe slowly then check some things where emotions are at slightly higher level. Yeah, and then next time we'll explore what is fueling this train of thought. But Vipul, thank you, and it's sharing. Thanks for sharing so many wonderful tips. Yeah, and thanks everyone for joining and having wonderful conversation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vinay. It was an honor. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Vinay. Have a good evening. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.